Hey guys, I want to give you a brief overview of how the ACT versus SAT math exams compare to one another. One of the things that you need to remember is the majority of the mathematics ranges from general mathematics through Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. However, there are some trigonometry identities that are on the exam that are important, but that doesn't mean you have to have a pre-cal class. Although, if you're ahead in your timeline, a pre-cal class is going to really help you, especially with the idea of the unit circle being transferred into the idea of the sine and the cosine and the tangent relationships. Let's take the examples that I have here, because what I want you to see is how the exams ask the same ideology, but just differently from one another. On the left-hand side, notice we have a graph, and that graph has all the coordinate pairs on it with a circle transcribed inside a square. And then in the bottom, you already have all of the answers listed in the standard form of an equation related to a circle. That's what I have listed in the center of the PowerPoint slide. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. If you understand that basic formula, then you can apply it quickly to the problem with a graph on it, because you'll notice that the center of the circle is actually 3, 3. And then that defines what the radius of the circle will be, which would be 3. The question on the left asks, which of the following is an equation of the circle that is inscribed in the square? Well, now we know that the radius is 3. You square that according to the equation here in the middle, and you know you've got a 9. So that eliminates E, D, and B. Now, the last thing you have to do is notice that the circle is to the right of the origin. With that being said, that means both of our signs need to fit this equation, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. Therefore, it's going to be answer choice A and not answer choice C, because answer choice C has +3 and +3, and that moves the circle to a different direction. Okay, even though it took me a little bit to explain that, notice how easy that is to get to it. Now let's look on the right, where we have an SAT math question set up with the actual formula of the circle, x squared plus y squared plus 4x minus 2y is equal to -1. Now, this question wants to know what is the radius of the circle based on the given equation. To get there, you're going to have to derive that radius from that equation by completing the square. So now you're going to have to write a few things, and it's, in my opinion, it's going to slow you down. And if you look beneath the question, you'll see the mathematics that I have. So the first thing we have to do is get our terms arranged together and group them. And then once we get them grouped, remember, you got to complete the square on the middle term. So you take half of the middle term and then square it. So x squared plus 4x, half of the middle term of 4 is 2. So we square the 2. So we're adding 4 to the left-hand side of the equation. We must do the same thing with the y terms. The middle term is 2. So half of 2 is 1. So we're going to square 1. So we're adding 1. Now, when we add the 4 and the 1 to the left side, we have to add it to the right side to keep it balanced. Simplify this step now, and then we get -1 and 1 cancels, and it leaves us a 4. Now notice on your x terms, it's simply the x and the number that you squared. So you make it x plus 2 and you square that whole thing. It becomes a binomial. Same thing with the y values, y minus 1 squared. Okay, now look what we have. We have now taken the original equation and put it into the form of x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. That 4 is the radius squared, so therefore the radius must be a 2. At this point, you need to think, which one of these questions could I have answered quicker? On the left side, your answer choices already have your answer in the form of x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. So you have a hint on where to go, whereas the SAT question on the right side starts with the original formula, and then you have to derive it. Maybe for some of you, that's okay. And maybe some of you could do that just as quickly. But in my experience with working with young adults for many years, the ACT question has always seemed to be a little bit quicker and more understandable for students on the exam. Okay. The other thing that you need to think about is how the math exams are laid out with one another. The ACT's math exam is really almost in a linear order, starting with consumer mathematics, progressing into pre-algebra, intermediate algebra, algebra 1, algebra 2 types of concepts, into more of a conceptual exam towards the end. So the first 30 questions are really consumer based and pre-algebra based, maybe intermediate algebra. And then the questions 31 to 60, they become more application based instead of being very straightforward. On the SAT, the math exam is divided into 2 math exams, one with a calculator and one without a calculator. However, the math questions are not laid out in that linear type of order. They are randomly organized. So whatever test you get that day, it could be the hardest visual problem that you see. And at that point, you then have to think about, how is that affecting you psychologically? Psychology comes in to these exams, and the more confidence you have, the more you're going to remain focused on the test instead of looking up at the clock and thinking, am I running out of time? The more you begin to look at the clock, the less focus you have. And when you have less focus, you're going to begin to panic. And as you panic, you begin to miss more questions. Now that can happen on both exams, But think of it like this. Which one is that going to happen to you the most on? The ACT or the SAT? Okay. That gives you a brief overview. I hope that gives you some help. And if I can ever be of help to you guys, please reach out to us. Have a great day.